Welcome to Pop Flashback. I'm your host, Rick Smalls, holding down the fort while Tina Boucher is she's catching some rays up on the roof. Today we're rewinding back to the epic battle between two video giants, Blockbuster and Netflix. Remember those blue and gold Blockbuster stores, filled with the smell of popcorn and the promise of movie night? It seemed like they were everywhere, until they weren't. Joining me today is someone who's spent a lot of time analyzing the business strategies of companies like Blockbuster and Netflix. Welcome.
It's great to be here. Yeah, it's fascinating to look back at this period and see how seemingly small decisions had such massive consequences.
It really is. You know, it's easy to look back and think, how could Blockbuster miss the boat on Netflix? But let's not forget, at the time, Netflix was just a mail-order DVD service. Blockbuster was the king with thousands of stores globally.
Exactly. And Blockbuster had a pretty solid business model. People liked browsing for movies, the stores were community hubs, and they even tried to innovate with things like Blockbuster Music and game rentals.
Right. But then came those late fees. A lot of people, myself included, have vivid memories of those dreaded envelopes. With the bold print reminding you about your overdue rentals, it definitely wasn't the best way to build customer loyalty.
No, it wasn't. And that's a key point of contrast with Netflix's approach. Right from the start, they eliminated late fees with their subscription model. That resonated with consumers who were tired of feeling penalized for simply enjoying movies.
It's funny how something as simple as a late fee can become a symbol of a company's values. Blockbuster felt punitive, while Netflix felt liberating.
Absolutely. And as technology evolved, that difference became even more stark. The Great Recession also played a role. Blockbuster, with its massive overhead costs, was hit hard. Meanwhile, Netflix, with its leaner digital model, was better positioned to weather the storm.
And then there's the infamous story of Blockbuster passing on the chance to buy Netflix for a mere $50 million back in the early 2000s. I mean, can you imagine how different things might be if they had taken that deal?
It's a classic case of a company failing to see the disruptive potential of a new technology. Blockbuster saw Netflix as a niche player, not a threat. They couldn't envision a future where streaming would become the dominant force in entertainment.
It's easy to say that in hindsight, but I can understand why Blockbuster might have thought that way. At the time, internet speeds were much slower and streaming technology was still in its infancy.
That's true. But there were signals. Netflix was growing rapidly, and they were investing heavily in building their streaming infrastructure. Blockbuster, on the other hand, was slow to adapt. They did eventually try to launch their own streaming service, but it was too little too late.
And by that time, Netflix had already established a strong brand, a loyal customer base, and a reputation for innovative technology.
Not to mention a vast and diverse content library. Remember, Blockbuster's strength was in physical inventory. They were limited by shelf space. Netflix, with its digital platform, could offer a practically unlimited selection of movies and TV shows.
And they were starting to produce their own original content, something that would become a game-changer in the streaming wars.
That's right. House of Cards in 2011 was a watershed moment. It showed that Netflix wasn't just a distributor of content, they were a creator too. And they weren't afraid to take risks, experimenting with formats like binge-watching and investing in high-quality productions.
That's where their data-driven approach really shines. They don't just throw shows at the wall and see what sticks. They use data to analyze viewing habits, trends, and preferences to inform their content decisions.
And that data also allows them to personalize recommendations, making the user experience more engaging. Think about it. The more you watch, the better Netflix understands your tastes, and the more likely you are to find something you love.
It's that constant cycle of data collection, analysis, and refinement that has helped them stay ahead of the curve.
Exactly, but it's not just about technology and data. Netflix understood that content is king. They've invested heavily in creating a diverse library of original programming, from documentaries to stand-up specials to reality shows to kids programming, and in multiple languages.
They've become a global entertainment powerhouse, and they're showing no signs of slowing down.
Indeed, their global expansion has been key to their continued growth. They're reaching audiences all over the world with content that resonates with local cultures.
So from late fees to streaming technology, from data analysis to content creation, it's clear that Netflix made a series of strategic decisions that positioned them for success.
Absolutely. And those decisions, coupled with Blockbuster's missteps, ultimately led to the downfall of one giant and the rise of another. It's a fascinating case study in how quickly the landscape can shift in the tech and entertainment industries.
It really is. It makes you wonder what other companies out there today might be on the verge of a similar disruption. What seemingly small choices are being made right now that could have major consequences down the line?
That's a great question, and it's something that leaders in every industry should be thinking about. The ability to adapt, innovate, and anticipate future trends is crucial in today's rapidly changing world.
You know, before we dive deeper into the specifics of Netflix's rise, I want to turn to you, the listener, for a moment. We've talked about Blockbuster's failure to adapt to the streaming revolution. But could they have done things differently? Could they have pivoted their business model to survive in the digital age? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. We're really curious to hear your perspective.
It's an interesting question to consider. Blockbuster did have some assets that could have been leveraged in the digital age. They had a strong brand, a large customer base, and a deep understanding of the movie rental market.
That's true. I mean, everyone knew the Blockbuster name, and they had those stores in prime locations. Maybe they could have become like hubs for streaming, offering in-store demos or even internet services?
Perhaps, but they would have needed to make some drastic changes to their business model. Their reliance on brick-and-mortar stores was a major liability in the face of online competition.
And let's not forget the late fees. That was a huge point of friction for customers. And Netflix capitalized on that by offering a subscription model with no late fees.
Exactly. Blockbuster was slow to recognize the shift in consumer preferences. People wanted convenience, flexibility, and value. Netflix understood that early on.
Okay, so let's say Blockbuster did try to pivot to streaming. What would they have needed to do to compete with Netflix?
Well, for starters, they would have needed to invest heavily in technology. Netflix poured resources into building a robust streaming platform that could deliver a seamless experience to millions of users.
I remember the early days of streaming. It was a lot of buffering and pixelation. Netflix really raised the bar in terms of quality and reliability.
They did, and they were constantly innovating, experimenting with new features and algorithms to improve the user experience. Remember, this was a time when people were still getting used to the idea of streaming. Netflix had to convince them that it was a viable alternative to cable and DVD rentals.
And they did a pretty good job of it. But it wasn't just about the technology. Netflix also made some smart decisions about content.
Absolutely. They understood the power of original programming. House of Cards was a game changer. It showed that Netflix was serious about creating high-quality content that could rival traditional television.
And they didn't stop there. They went on to produce a string of hits from Orange is the New Black to Stranger Things to The Crown.
They weren't afraid to take risks. Either they invested in diverse genres from comedy to drama to documentaries, and they gave a platform to creators from all over the world.
That's one of the things I find so impressive about Netflix. They've really embraced global content, bringing us stories from different cultures and perspectives.
It's been a key part of their growth strategy. By appealing to a wider audience, they've been able to expand their subscriber base significantly.
And they've also been clever about leveraging data to inform their content decisions. They analyze viewing patterns, trends, and preferences to figure out what people want to watch.
That data-driven approach has allowed them to create shows and movies that are more likely to resonate with audiences. They're not just guessing, they're using insights to make strategic choices.
It's a far cry from the days of browsing the aisles at Blockbuster, hoping to stumble upon a hidden gem.
Indeed, Netflix has fundamentally changed the way we consume entertainment. We're no longer limited by physical inventory or geographic location. We have access to a vast library of content available on demand at our fingertips.
It's amazing to think about how far we've come. But even with all its success, Netflix isn't without its challenges.
That's right. The streaming landscape is becoming increasingly competitive. New players are entering the market all the time, and the cost of producing high-quality content is rising.
And they've had to deal with issues like password sharing and the need to find new ways to generate revenue.
They've introduced ad-supported plans and cracked down on password sharing, which haven't been universally popular with users.
It'll be interesting to see how those strategies play out in the long run. But one thing is for sure, Netflix isn't going away anytime soon. They're a force to be reckoned with, and they're constantly evolving to stay ahead of the curve.
They're experimenting with new technologies like interactive storytelling and virtual reality, and they're expanding into new areas like gaming and live events.
They're clearly thinking about the future of entertainment and how they can continue to innovate and engage audiences.
And that's the key to their success. They're not standing still. They're constantly pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
You know, it's fascinating to look back at the Blockbuster versus Netflix saga and see how it mirrors the broader story of technological disruption.
Absolutely. It's a tale of innovation, adaptation, and the importance of understanding consumer needs.
It's a reminder that even the biggest giants can fall if they fail to keep up with the times.
And that even seemingly small decisions can have massive consequences in the long run.
We've covered a lot of ground today, from the rise and fall of Blockbuster to the meteoric rise of Netflix.
We've explored the strategic choices that led to their divergent paths and the broader trends shaping the entertainment industry.
Now I want to turn it back to you, the listener. Do you think Netflix can maintain its dominance in the ever-evolving streaming landscape? It's a question worth pondering, isn't it? The streaming landscape is like a constantly shifting jungle, with new predators and prey emerging all the time.
That's a great analogy. And just like in nature, adaptability is key to survival in the streaming world.
Right. So what does that mean for Netflix? They've built this incredible empire, but can they hold on to their crown with so many challengers on the horizon?
Well, they certainly have some advantages. They have a massive global subscriber base, a strong brand reputation, and a deep understanding of how to use data to create compelling content.
Plus, they've been investing heavily in original programming, which gives them a leg up in terms of exclusivity.
That's crucial in today's market. When you have shows that people can't watch anywhere else, it creates a powerful incentive to subscribe.
You know, it's funny to think about how far Netflix has come from those early days of mailing DVDs.
It really is remarkable. They were pioneers in the streaming space, and they've managed to stay ahead of the curve for the most part.
But they've also made some missteps along the way. Remember when they tried to split their DVD and streaming businesses?
Oh, yeah, that didn't go over well with subscribers. It felt like they were trying to nickel and dime people.
And more recently, the crackdown on password sharing has caused some backlash.
It's a tough balancing act. They need to find ways to protect their revenue, but they also don't want to alienate their loyal users.
So what's the secret sauce for Netflix to stay on top? What do you think they need to do to thrive in the next chapter of the streaming wars?
Well, I think they need to double down on what they're already good at, creating high-quality, diverse content that appeals to a global audience.
That's a given, right? But the competition is fierce. Every streaming service is trying to do the same thing.
True. But Netflix has a proven track record. They've shown that they can consistently produce hits, from Squid Game to Bridgerton to Stranger Things.
And they're not afraid to experiment with different genres and formats.
Exactly. They've had success with everything from documentaries to reality shows to stand-up specials.
I think they also need to stay agile and adapt to changing consumer habits.
That's a crucial point. The way people watch content is constantly evolving. They need to be able to anticipate those changes and adjust their strategies accordingly.
So maybe that means investing in new technologies like virtual reality or interactive storytelling.
It could, or maybe it means exploring new business models like partnering with other companies or offering bundled services.
Whatever the future holds, one thing is clear. Netflix is a company that's constantly reinventing itself.
And that's what makes them so fascinating to watch. They're not afraid to take risks, to experiment, and to push the boundaries of what's possible.
Well, folks, we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of Netflix. It's been a wild ride from those early days of mail-order DVDs to their current status as a global entertainment powerhouse.
It's been a pleasure dissecting this fascinating story with you.
Thanks for joining us on this journey. And remember, the conversation doesn't end here. Head over to the comments section and let us know your thoughts. Do you think Netflix can maintain its dominance? What challenges do you think they'll face in the future? We want to hear from you. Thanks for listening. Remember to like and subscribe so you can get our next episode. Catch you next time.